All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your market and option recap for Wednesday, May 30th. So S&P comes right back, right? So, kind of a false breakdown, maybe a little bit too much drama out there yesterday, and we're back. We're right back into the range of where we've been the last couple weeks. What I noted yesterday and this morning, I put this out on Twitter, was that the S&P chart yesterday, the candle. I do use the value areas a lot. I think they're really good support and resistance levels. And while intraday we broke into the May value area, we continue to close above it. So, a nice kick save yesterday, and then buyers came back. I think buyers recognized, maybe had a chance to kind of sleep on, the news that we've kind of been there and done that with Europe before. What I said in last night's video was that, all in all, I didn't think this Italy stuff was too much. Matter too much, but there was some damage that was definitely done on the charts, especially international, which I think is still a must-watch area. And what I'm most concerned about is just international. What's going on. So we got a little bit of a help in that space with the dollar cooling off. So just like we had rates, cool off from getting hot a couple weeks ago and rising. A nice, well-needed pullback a little bit. Kind of a toppy-looking candle in the UUP. That's the dollar bull ETF, or the that tracks the U.S. dollar. So a toppy looking candle yesterday and a move back 0.75%. If this dollar continues to be just show a little bit of weakness, and at least doesn't stop ramping like this, perhaps international may be able to catch up a little bit with the U.S. All right. So besides that S&P chart, which basically just shows us back into the range of where we've been the last couple of weeks, what's been really, and again, I'm always looking for the outperformance, right? We're always looking for the alpha in this market, and what's been really cooking pretty nice is small caps. Small caps made a 52-week high, or an all-time high actually, I believe it was last week. So they're right back at it again today. So up huge, up 1.6%, and that was recognized pretty early. And then also, if you look at mid caps, right? I mean, mid caps are also showing some nice strength too. So they're up 1.5%. So again, real nice performance there, and that looks like it wants to get to a 52-week high as well. So again, up 1.5%. That basically matched what the small caps did. That's the MDY ETF. Qs, which I think a lot of people have been waiting for the Qs to kind of break higher as well. Now above that little dotted line that I've got drawn here. So, looking pretty good. A smaller day, up 70 basis points. But remember yesterday, there's basically just a doji candle on the Qs yesterday. So, all in all, when you net the 2 days, better than SPY. Better than SPY, may not be so bad. Remember yesterday, by the way, small caps were only down 10 basis points. So they kind of really gave a little bit of a hint. And it just shows you where the strength is. And you could see this across sectors too, right? I've been talking about this for a while. I want to talk a little bit about IBB, which I've been talking about for a while, that the larger caps, especially even in biotech, right? They just haven't had the momentum. They've been moving sideways, and I hear a lot of people just kind of, I think people who are not specialists. I'm not a specialist in biotech, but I know a little something. But it's definitely not my specialty. But I see more generalists talk on Twitter about biotech, and they're like, "Oh yeah, maybe this biotech has been really tough. Maybe look at it this way, maybe look at it sideways. I don't know." But if you look at small cap biotech, you're going to be shocked. And if you're a regular viewer of my videos, I've been talking about this for a while. But look at what's going on. This is small cap healthcare. Look at so. This you don't have to overanalyze. I mean, I saw somebody a couple weeks ago, they put out a chart of IBB, and they're like, it's make or break time. No, I think just some of the really large cap names are kind of just stuck in the mud. I think biotech is showing, I mean, look at this thing. It's actually your best performing group, I believe, year to date. Also, you could look at again. These are ETFs that I've been talking about for a while, but this one I'm long. This is XHE. This is healthcare equipment stocks, so more kind of medical device names. But look at this thing. I mean, this is some of if you're not paying attention to, and it goes. I'm not being critical of anybody here. It just goes to show you how you really have to kind of find these things, which is my job. It's basically my job is to find the alpha and to find the things that are moving. So yeah, I mean, if you're just sitting and watching this IBB chart, you're not doing it right. I'll leave it there. However, the one thing I will say about this IBB chart, it is now above the 200-day moving average, and you could use that 200-day moving average as your stop if you want to play basically large cap biotech. If you do look at the movers today, right? One of the things that you notice and why this group is did so well today. Take a look at the names that are in the top 15. These are the movers ranked by best and worst. But look at the names like Edit, which we saw a little bit of a call buyer yesterday. Fold. These are small cap biotech names. So so you're really doing yourself a disservice, by kind of investing in something like this that's so slow moving. None of the names that the big cap biotech like Celgene, Regeneron, Biogen, they're not up here. So the beauty of putting on an ETF like that PSCH is that you can get exposure to small cap biotech, and you're not it's not as risky as owning something that you don't know. In some of these names that have just been ramping, it's a lot more diversified than just picking a couple of these names that I've had if you're not an expert in that name. All right, so that's enough about biotech, but I just think it's really interesting what's going on here with some of these names. And again, I can't tell you. I own a couple of these things because they've been really nice winners. I own Fold. I own HRTX. So I've got a little exposure to some of these names, but I think I would rather play these names, through the means of the ETF. All right, so that's the story there. So again, this is the IBB, but again, you look at the best performers and it's small caps. All right, so I guess I'm hammering that point home hard enough. What was very nice, I think, for the market today, and also kind of gave a little bit of an all clear signal, was the move in oil today, up 2.2%. Came back pretty nicely. So, on Kramer's show, I was watching that briefly, or I watched a couple of segments. I wanted to listen to the Benioff interview from Salesforce, but I watched what they had to say. They used a technician, and they were talking about how a lot of speculators have been positioning long in oil. Sure. So I think at this point, you got a chance to kind of take a little bit of. You had a chance to kind of get out of some trades if you thought that this is going to be short-lived and that if oil goes back down. But look at XOP. That was actually your best performer amongst sectors. That was up 3.7% today. So some of the names, I am in a couple names. I actually was able to make some money today in Marathon. This was the MRO that I talked about last week, and I was kind of a little bit bitter about because I think I bought it on this day and it sank. I did add to the position, and the average cost basis, being in here, and now I'm above, so I was able to actually take some of that trade off today. So very nice. Another name that if you want to watch in the space is Hess. That's a name that's been seeing repeat call activity. XOM was strong today. Was up, I think, 4% today. They were saying that's the first time that's happened in a couple of years. An upgrade this morning, as well as a bit of call buying the last couple of weeks, as well as today in Exxon. So those are your best performing groups. The financials, to tell you the truth, I really didn't do much in the financials today. I just think there's better areas, kind of an inside day for XLF. EUFN, which is the European financials, which got smoked yesterday, down over 5%, did claw back. It was up 2.2%. Big volume on that on a big move down. So, some of these things you don't have to try to like play a bounce in. I don't think I want to really get, regardless of financials may be cheap and getting a bounce here. I just think there's better opportunities out there than in the banks right now. I went over that in last night's video. What else performed? So a couple other charts to kind of go through. I think today was definitely about single names, regardless of some of those sectors that I mentioned. Um, some of these Chinese internet names that are just IQ has been seeing call buying. This is the Netflix of China. I believe really really strong. We've been seeing. I have it up right here. Some July calls. They may have rolled out of some June today, but it looks like the July 30 calls were pretty active in this IQ name. Another new IPO name in this space is Billy. Look at this one. Up 11% today and closed pretty close to the highs. Again, new names. Also, some of those names that have been around for a while. Not newer IPO names, but look at this YY. I'm not in this name, but wow, what a move finally off the 200-day moving average and out of consolidation. You've had to be patient in this name, and you've had to be a patient player in a lot of these names. So it just goes to show you that it's not easy. Sometimes you don't get instant gratification being in some of these names. I do think the Chinese internet names, speaking of why I'm kind of talking about a couple of these names, if you don't want to play those individual names, I think the KWeb ETF, which I had in the newsletter, I thought as long as it kind of holds that 200-day moving average, it kind of looks pretty interesting here to me. A nice move away from that 200-day moving average. So clearly there's a couple names that really led the space, which I just went over, which those two internet names are not in this ETF, but still I think the YY is in there, and this looks compelling to me. I think that looks pretty interesting to me. A few other charts that I think I might as well go over. I would say a lot of names, a lot of squeeze names. This Shack, so regardless of, Shack saw some call buy, a little bit of call buying today, but regardless of everybody being negative on this name, a real nice bull flag and a move out of that. So sometimes you just kind of have to watch the charts and try not to listen too much to whatever financial publication that you're listening to or reading, I should say, because there's been a lot of negative notes out about Shack. And nothing really gave you a sell signal after earnings. It kind of just held in here for a good couple of weeks. Again, kind of maybe tested your patience if you were in it, and I'm not in it. I'm not in this one, but real nice move in this one. What I am in was Nvidia. I got long this name yesterday. A little, not so much of like a 10% move, but hey, a nice move here and a nice grind higher. It's been working pretty well. It's now above this line. I put this on yesterday. I also put on a little trade in race. Ferrari today, I think, got overly beaten up. Maybe it has a little bit of exposure to Europe, but I think it needs to go a little further here. So, like I said, I started a position. You could basically draw a trend line in here too. It's got to get over, in my opinion, these two short-term moving averages. But nice bounce off the 50-day moving average. So it's got more work to do, but it's definitely on my radar. And I started a position today. Grub. This was another name that I featured in the weekend newsletter. Again, took some time after earnings, a couple weeks. Was on my radar a couple times. So like I said, a name that we talked about in the weekend newsletter, looking towards that purple line, that VPOC up there. STZ, another name that has a lot of consumer staples got going today, but STZ, nice move off of the 200-day moving average. I've been sitting long this name. I'm short some put spreads, which might actually work out for me, but you got a nice MACD crossover here. I would keep an eye on this. I view this as best in breed in the bottling or consumer staples space. I think Constellation Brands is a name that I'd rather own than some of these other names. CL finally got going today. We've seen call buying a couple times in here. I did not stay long this name. I bailed for basically like a scratch. These names that are in downtrends and that are in that you get into for counter trend trades. I don't want to be in here watching the paint dry, so I did get out of that name, and of course now it's moving. Soup, which I call it CPB. There's continuous call buying in this. We've seen call buying, I would say, out of the last 6 days, maybe 5 out of the last 6 days. What I said today in the trading room was, I think it's worth taking a small flyer on this thing. Big gap down after earnings. I would not put a lot of money into this, but you could see. I mean, there was some buying going on in cash today too. There was a block of I think 700,000 shares that were bought. So somebody likes this thing. Either they're thinking that it's cheap, or there was a couple headline, false headlines always chatter about a possible takeout, and that's been always this occurs time and time again, and in the consumer staple space, 90 probably above 90% of the time when you hear that one of these consumer staples names may be taken out, at least 90% of the time, I would almost say 95 to 99% of the time, there's nothing to it. But still, I still think, regardless of the fake chatter, I still think it's worth taking a tiny shot on a counter trend trade in this one. So I think we've covered enough of the bases. There's definitely some other names that I'm watching, but pretty good, pretty good action across the board in equities. I'm hoping tomorrow that we can get a little bit of follow through in the big S&P names, but still, I don't think we need the S&P to kind of rage higher to make money in this market. We just, in my opinion, just don't want to see those big red days where, everything full participation to the downside goes. All right, guys, thanks for watching the video. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.